The local church is the center of disciple making. Pastor West Brazelton and the staff and congregation at Grace Bible Church in Houston, Texas, is a great illustration of what God's doing in local free churches where there's a culture of disciple making.
We've really tried over the course of the 15 years we've existed just to focus all of our programmatic efforts toward disciple making. And that's principally done in small groups, but even the small groups exist to equip people to go out into one-on-one or life-on-life relationships and invest very intentionally in other people to try to grow them to maturity. It's a challenge because of what people expect from a church. And I think it's also a little bit of a challenge just because we live in a corporate climate where people don't have a lot of time dedicated for relationships outside of their family or their kids.
How are you seeing people in your church respond to that emphasis on spending time together, doing life together, and recognizing there's a lot of time pressures on people today?
It's an interesting thing because people feel really busy such that they can't, they think, develop intentional relationships, but then they also simultaneously say that they feel lonely and isolated. And the digital age has done nothing to help that. In fact, it's probably increased the difficulty of isolation or the feeling of isolation. And so we're constantly beating the drum of we need each other. We exist to be in relationship with each other. The church is not the church unless the church is a community. And then we've also just tried to challenge people to be really strategic in kind of combining the things that they are already doing with a relational intentionality. So if I'm going to go out and exercise 3 or 4 times a week, I'm going to use that time to bring somebody else into those endeavors that I can pour into them while I'm exercising. If I'm going to work, I'm going to see work as an opportunity to invest in coworkers and try to be strategic in how I invest in coworkers such that it's a disciple-making relationship, not just a relationship of peers in the same business.
You know, 2 things hit me as you were talking, Wes. The first is a clear sense of intentionality. This isn't just going to happen unless church leadership as well as individual people are intentional about looking for those opportunities. The second thing that hit me, though, was how you're living out Matthew 28, 18 to 20. Because there Jesus said, as you're going, make disciples. As you're doing life, make disciples.
There's kind of a 2-part dynamic to that. Programmatically, almost everything we do is based in a very relational model for small groups. We are developing intimacy, accountability, vulnerability, all of that. But in that, we're putting forth the principle of, whatever God has given you already, He's given you as a vehicle to make disciples. So in our small groups, we're trying to teach disciple-making principles, but then really what we want people to do is not think of their disciple-making just as beginning and ending in their small group, but the small group being a platform from which they dive out into the rest of their lives to go and make disciples one-on-one. So I always tell people, if our disciple-making efforts begin and end with our small groups, we've failed.